Hi, welcome to Fanya Mambo Africa. This is probably our last episode for the year, and been a very, very interesting year. And Fanya Mambo, how would you describe your 2024?
2024 has been a fighting year. It has been 1 year when we have really fought. We have fought against oppression, we've fought about bad governance, we've fought about bad leadership, we've fought about bad decisions. I think 2024 for me was the year of combat.
The combat, by all means.
We were in combat mode, 2024, wow. Yes.
And before I go to the key issues, what would you say for you stood out on a personal level?
Obviously, it was the finance bill, 2024. That stood out. That was the towering pillar of 2024. The fight, the mobilization, the information, everything around the finance bill 2024 is what has stood out for me this year.
And for me, I feel like that changed how politics is done in Kenya.
Yes, it did.
And it brought citizens who actually on a normal day wouldn't bother much to be concerned with how the country is governed, but that changed. What would you say that has done to the politics of the country generally?
First and foremost, we started at a time when things were very difficult. Some of us spoke when people wouldn't speak. I remember some of us were speaking when we were being told mambo ni matatu and all sorts of threats. But we kept the pressure, and people kept asking me, Fanya Mambo, where is your sense of self-preservation? At what point do you sit and think about your safety and well-being? And I said, no, I cannot be safe and well when our country is not safe and well. Let's keep talking about it. And the more I spoke about it, the more people joined, and the more people said, wait a minute, we can actually come out and speak about it. And what I like is about the personal spaces, because you see what our social media has done, whatever social media platform one is on, is that it gives you an opportunity to influence 5, 10, 15, 20 people, 100 people, and so on and so forth. And the fact that it was peers to peer, somebody seeing my friend is doing this on their social media platform, and they're informing Kenyans, and they trust their friends, and they believe in them, it became very organic, and it spread. And now we have people taking up what is said by politicians, digesting it, and churning out the information to their peers in a way that their peers understand and in a way that their peers find palatable. So I am happy that our democratic space is not taking the form of Bwendeni kwa baraza ya chief mukambue maneno. It's taking the form of we are informed citizens. We will hear what the president says. We will hear what the government says. We will interpret it, and what we need to fight, we will fight. And what we need to commend, we will commend.
And I think it was either the beginning of this year or late last year when the president said he was given a sword, na si ya kukatakata mboga. Do you think he lived to those words?
We reminded him that first he was given the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and then he was given the sword. But we reminded him most vehemently that the sword was to protect the Constitution. That was the purpose of the sword. It was not for anything else. If they thought there was any other use for that sword was supposed to have been used against any person who came and tried to infringe on the 2010 Constitution or to take away the rights of others as provided for in the 2010 Constitution. And we found an administration that was more keen on using the sword than they were keen on using the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And so we kept reminding them, go back to the Constitution. Go back to the Constitution. And we told them, it is the Constitution that confers the sword upon you. It is not the sword that gives you the Constitution. So you just go back to the primary source. And anytime you're about to make a mistake, we remind you, it is the Constitution that gives the sword. It is not the sword that gives the Constitution. So if there's one thing that you have to protect with everything you have, is the 2010 Constitution. And as long as you are found within the confines of that Constitution, as long as you're living within the borders of that Constitution, you'll be a very happy head of state.
But looking back, do you feel he's utilized the sword more or the Constitution?
It has been more of the sword, unfortunately. I still feel bad that we had to lose so many young lives because of people just saying, don't tax our pampers, don't tax our sanitary towels, don't add tax on bread. People were just fighting for survival. We barely can fix 3 meals a day, and you want to come and add taxation on bread. And we come to the streets and tells you, please do not tax our bread. And then you use our own taxes to buy tear gas and batons and to pay soldiers to beat us up, maim us, shoot us, spill our brains on tarmac, and even have some of us disappear for good, never to be seen again. So it's a very, 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 very difficult time, and I think they have used the sword in excessive measure, and they have ignored the constitution to a very, very, very great extent.
Which I actually agree with that, because we lost, let's say, so far what we know, we lost 60 young people during the Mandamano, the Gen Z Mandamano. And when I look back, I really feel they shouldn't have died. For someone who comes out with a flag and a bottle of water and maybe a phone, it was not, they did not deserve to die, but they died. But the people who killed them is the police. So what would you say of the Kenya police in 2024?
I think I want to remind the Kenya Police 2024 to look at what is happening with the Rex Masai case. I always say, may he rest in peace. We will never forget him. Rex Masai, you remain dear to our hearts. And to the parents and family of Rex Masai, we wish, as a Kenyan fraternity, we could come home to you this Christmas and try to fill the void. We know we can't, and try to fill the void of that lost young man. And there are many others, but when we think about him, and when we think about what this administration did, and right now there is a policeman now who is being charged to carry individual responsibility for a mission he had been sent by an oppressive regime, and to go and to bear responsibility for the shooting of Rex Masai. I empathize with the Kenya police, because some of them, very many of them are Gen Zs, by the way, and then there are some millennials. The bulk of them now, Gen Xs, are very senior up there. And what I feel, if the court ever finds that policeman guilty of the murder of Rex Masai, then it must find guilty the people who sent that policeman to the streets to go and kill young people, because it was very easy. What was so hard in withdrawing the finance bill before it gets to Parliament? There is acrimony. People are saying no. There would have been no Occupy Parliament. This administration is privy to intelligence information that told them, kesho kwa streets kutakuwa kubaya. And if I was head of state, I would have said, wait a minute. Young people are planning to demonstrate? Yes. I come and say, please, I have listened to you. I have withdrawn the finance bill. I want to have more consultations with you. We would have saved all those lives. So to the policemen, I empathize with you, because you have bosses who send you to the line of fire to fight people who are actually fighting for what you yourselves would have wanted done.
Yeah.
And then you are made to bear the burden of the losses of those lives. And that is an unfortunate place, because I feel more senior people should have borne that burden.
But they were trigger happy. Like, why would you are the one who has the gun. You do not have to shoot as a policeman, do you?
I will tell you this. You and I were on those streets. Let me not speak on your behalf, but I was on those streets.
I was there covering, so.
And we know that sometimes things can get out of hand. And obviously also, it's good to think in terms of the policeman. If they sometimes don't use that rifle, and maybe by dint of bad manners it gets into the wrong hands, that rifle would kill many other people. And it would be imputable upon the police, because it's a rifle that has got Kenya bullets in it, and it's a Kenyan rifle. I still insist, if you read The Art of War, the best way to avert a crisis is to stop it before it happens.
True.
So coming to blame the police for what happened, they have a share of responsibility. This was a leadership problem. I can tell you.
It was a leadership, yes.
It was a leadership problem.
They have to take responsibility. Let me tell you
I'm not absolving them.
You know, even the KDF was sent. But did KDF shoot anyone? So why is it that the police shot, but KDF came and just...
whoever sent KDF there is every inch of unwise. There is no better word to describe someone who sent KDF to the streets, because even us who are civilians and have never been to a barracks, But we have army friends. And our army friends tell us that they are training. They were never taught how to use a stick. It is not an implement of war. There is no KDF officer who was trained how to use a tear gas canister. There is no KDF officer who was taught how to quell a street protest. The only thing they are taught is how to kill. They are army men who are taught how to go to the bush, how to go to the forest. They use bombs, they use guns, they use grenades. So did you want them to come and throw grenades on the streets? Really, these are people who were sent to a space they have never been prepared for. And so what they did is they came and they allowed Gen Zs to climb on their cars and to take selfies and to just have a nice time with them, because they are supposed to protect us from external aggression. KDF use bombs, they use RPGs, they use automatic rifles, they have a countless number of bullets allocated to them.
Why did
so when you
send them to civilians, by the way?
It's not their commander. Our army is known to be professional the world over. I mean, that is a civilian without a very good brain, I must say. But the commander of the army may have taken directions from civilians at the top administration of this country who have no idea what an army is about. Because I can tell you, no professional army fights against its own citizens, especially on the streets. You're a failed state if you're sending the army
to fight people with
water
bottle and a flag.
Then they come there, exactly. Now that was the confusion of the army. These are people who've gone to Somalia. They find heavily armed Al-Shabaab. They have multi-purpose machine guns, they have grenades, they have RPGs, they have all sorts of ballistic missiles. And that's what they are used to. So you come and tell them that the guy you're supposed to deal with has a flag, an iPhone, and mineral water. And it's very confusing for the army. So how do you fight a guy with a flag? How do you fight a guy who's never even been trained how to fight? You are in combat gear. They usually fight people who are also in combat gear. And it was a mess. It was the biggest mistake that the security agencies have ever made in this country.
I agree. Yeah. That's very true.
The only time I think the army was justifiably sent against civilians was when there was Mount Elgon headed by Matakwei. But this was a guerrilla outfit. They had their own identity. They were weaponized. They were armed. They were fighting a war. And that was good. The KDF went there and they crushed Matakwei and his people, and he was buried, and that was justified. The invasion of Somalia, to a great extent, especially if they were coming to abduct tourists here, was justified. But sending the army to the streets was the most horrible decision ever made.
And it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Yes.
And I remember during that season for Maandamano, something else major happened. The former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua came out and gave a speech that was very, shocking to many people, calling out the NIS of this country, saying that they're not giving proper information to the president. And now that came being fought back from NIS saying, no, you can't reveal such things to the country. They're not justified. It's false. How did that affect the country now moving forward?
If government spokesman Mwaura says that Russia is funding Maandamano, and then someone from the same administration says Ford Foundation is funding Maandamano, and then someone from that administration says that Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is funding Maandamano, and then another person from that administration says that Rigathi himself is funding that Maandamano, then it tells you that that's a very coherent NIS, it's a very competent NYS, they have given perfect information that has got no conflict, and that's a perfect outfit. When you hear Isaac Mwaura, government spokesman, speaking from the comforts of his house at night and telling Kenyans that the Russians are funding this, and then someone else says Ford Foundation and so forth, it was so incoherent. And for that reason, we need to clap for NIS and the intelligence services and say they gave very good information.
Maybe it was how they planned so that
You see, it's out there for Kenyans. Kenyans can see. When there is all these incoherences, and when there is all this confusion around who is funding Gen Zs, and who is their leader, and how it's going on, then it tells you. And that's why they resorted to only one way: abducting people, torturing them, trying to get information, then realizing there's no information, dumping their bodies. Some, are found in rivers, Uko, KU, and wherever. Others have never been found because they were trying to look for a leader. And if that is how our intelligence services are looking for the leadership of the Gen Zs, then it tells you something is really wrong in that sector.
Something is wrong. Yeah. And after that whole mess that happened, the abductions, the killings, and all these things, we ended up having a broad-based government because a handshake happened between
it's Prime called bread-based.
Or bread-based.
Yes.
Between former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the President, Ruto. And people had different reactions to that. How has that again also changed politics? Because I feel for Raila, so many people started looking at him like someone who really didn't have the heart of people, really.
To start with, you see, there are two groups of Gen Zs in this country. And I remember one UDA politician putting it out rightly and saying these people are drinking mineral water, they are going to nice establishments to buy chicken, they have iPhones, and their perfumes are smelling very nice. So they don't know the problems that bedevil this country. So there's that brand of Gen Z. That is a Gen Z that hails from the upper middle class, the middle class, and even the top class of this country. Because even the children of some of those politicians were on the streets. Now, those Gen Zs, the reason William Ruto had to look for Raila Odinga very quickly was one. Had the Gen Zs of the other side, and these are the Gen Zs who are ordinarily found in the slums, who have been involved in maandamano before, who came with stones and sticks and pellets, and their maandamano was something else. It was war. If those Gen Zs who understood maandamano as war had found an interaction with these Gen Zs who came with a flag and water and so on, and combined forces, that force would have been impossible to quell. So the reason he reached out for Raila Amolo Odinga is because he knew Raila Amolo Odinga controls this section of Gen Zs that are known to live in very many informal settlements within Nairobi, and they follow him dearly. And you remember for a long time, all his followers were on, and they were saying, let us see this new maandamano that we have never seen, because ours is usually war. We come with stones, we do all sorts of things. And here we have guys who are coming with flags and they are occupying parliament, and they have never occupied parliament. So it was a fear of the Gen Zs under the control of Raila Amolo Odinga coming to join forces with the Gen Zs who had been leaderless and so on and so forth and so forth. I think Raila Amolo Odinga lost a chance, because had he allowed whatever was going on to go on without his interference, and the young people had told him not to interfere, what would have happened is that this government would have been pushed to the edge, and they probably would have resigned. We probably would have had a new election.
Do you think Raila is genuinely concerned about the country?
Everybody has their
judging
understanding.
From these particular events.
Everybody has their understanding of genuine concern. Maybe from where he stood, I have tried not to judge him very harshly, because in the past he's sacrificed.
Yes.
And he's done a lot of good work for this country. Maybe from where he stood, he thought that the country could plunge into anarchy. And maybe if he works with the president, he could help just to restore and maintain the constitutional order. Everybody has their own understanding of what it is that it means to save a nation. Some people tend to think and feel that, fighting is a good thing. Some tend to think and feel that going to the streets is not a very good thing. I think he made his decision based on his disposition as a person and on the advice that he got from whoever advises him. But I still feel the fight goes on. However it is that it went, the fight goes on. The fact that we have a stable nation and we have peace is a good thing for all of us. But the fight goes on.
And from that Raila handshake, again towards the end of, actually this month of December, we again saw a handshake between former President Uhuru Kenyatta and the current president in Gatundu, actually. How did that...
It's a funny thing. You see, the president's people, starting with Moses Kuria, had promised to irrigate Mama Ngina's home with their own urea, as if they have a monopoly of urea in this country. And they had said they are going there and they are going to irrigate that place. Now, for the leader of the team of people that promised to irrigate Mama Ngina's home, to literally go to that same home and look for Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta in that home is, for me, very confusing. And what is even more perplexing is how they went there, because they flew in there.
No.
Yes.
No.
Uh-huh.
He drove.
He drove there.
Yes.
Okay.
With what he didn't have is the usual presidential motorcade.
Okay.
I think there were maybe like 2-3 cars.
Okay. So they drive into that compound and they have gone to that home. I think let me start looking at it first from the other side. Mama Ngina. Mama Ngina has been First Lady of this Republic. In fact, she was the first lady of the Republic of Kenya. She's now 90 and a mother to everybody. I think we must all commend that woman for allowing people who insulted her, who took security away from her, who oversaw the stealing of their goats, because for 24 hours there was no police present in their home when their goats were being stolen. And remember, the leader of majority, Kimani Ichung'wah, had promised that that place would be raided a day before. It's on national TV record. He promised it would be raided. It was raided. And so these are the people who presided over the stealing of her own goats. You know, the defilement of her compound and getting young people to go in there and do all sorts of evil things. And she welcomes them into her house, and she probably gives them a cup of tea and maybe something to eat.
At least we heard from the Philippines saying thank you for nyama choma.
That is a mother. And we all as a country must take a minute to celebrate Mama Ngina Kenyatta. From wherever you are, we clap for you. Because what you have shown is what is very hard in the Bible. You know, loving your enemies, praying for those who persecute you, and doing good to them. She has done good to the people who persecuted her. I'm trying to imagine the situation of the guy at the gate. He's probably a GSU officer or two, who then see very senior GSU officers come and tell them, open the gate. And then what do? You open because these are your bosses. And people drive in and they park. And you can't call your boss and tell her, mama, kuna watu wamekuja hapa na ni wakubwa wangu na nataka kuingia. So I think I commend Mama Ngina for having shown that motherhood, for having shown that spirit of forgiving people who've done atrocious things to yourself and to your family. Now, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is an African leader. He is a man, I would say, a Kikuyu guy who has been a member of those Kikuyu elders. And I can tell you one thing is when people come to your house, you don't send them away. Especially people who've done you wrong. Because it's an act of, they've probably come to make an apology. So we commend Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta for having received him. And for the conversations they had, it's okay to have those conversations as leaders. I mean, the president has permission to go and consult there if he wishes to consult. However, there is a song Mount Kenya is singing right now. Dahunyokete giuma kwa wainga. They are saying that they have come from a place where nobody would take them back. If the conversation was geared, because you see, President Ruto has lost the mountain and he knows. And when he went to Embu and he saw the mountain cheering at Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, he believed, oh, the mountain is with this guy. And if I have lost the mountain, a big section of the mountain, through Rigiji, I can go back through the window and recapture it through Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has been told by the people of Mount Kenya, by the way, thank you for meeting Ruto, for having tea with him and a conversation. If you are trying to woo us back to him, you are going on your own. But if you've had other conversations that are beneficial to the two of you, that's okay with us as the people of Mount Kenya. So Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta needs to know that the people of Mount Kenya have drawn William Ruto as the person that they do not want to be their leader. And so even if Rigiji today was to reconcile with William Ruto and tell the people of Mount Kenya, oh, you love me, you follow me, can we go back to William Ruto? They'll tell me, that is where we draw the line. That we will accept everything else other than you taking us back to William Ruto. So this has got to be very clear to President William Ruto that the people of the mountain are saying it's okay, and the people are telling Uhuru, we still love you, only to the extent that you don't take us to William Ruto. If you take us back there, then the love goes. The love goes. Whatever cheering and happiness and everything we've had towards you will disappear. So he needs to make up his mind and decide if he's going to address the mountain on anything, let it not be about taking them back to William Ruto.
Wait, so, sometimes I look at it and I'm like, okay, which is actually a good thing, the way Kenya has transformed from personalities, because previously it's Ruto, it's Raila, it's so-and-so, maybe it's Fanya Mambo. Now, people are arguing from the basis of issues. It's the health, it's education, it's it's the taxes. So how would you define our politics? Are we fully there on issues, or are we still tied to sisi ni watu wa mlima, sisi ni watu wa lake? Is it still a thing?
Our politics is primarily hinged on economics before everything else. When people are hungry, you cannot have a conversation about anything else. When people cannot afford healthcare and school fees and the basic needs, you cannot have a conversation about anything else. The leader who will fix the basic needs of Kenya, food, shelter, clothing, education, is the leader who will become dearest and closest to the people. And so I keep telling people, do your best, if you're an elected leader, to be able to meet Kenyans at their point of needs. And that's why our things are now issue-based. People, you'll come and tell people, oh, watu wetu, watu wa mlima ama watu wa coast, they'll tell you, wait a minute. Sha. They'll tell you, Mlinda Mama, my wife is about to deliver. And you are telling me that I should support this government because I'm from coast, or I'm from western, or I'm from Luo Nyanza. No. We want Linda Mama. It's an issue that is very close to people because this is a man who's got to do a budget for the delivery of their child. And for him, it's not about the tribe anymore. It's about how will my child be delivered and where and who will pay. This is someone who's got somebody who needs kidney dialysis. And you are here telling them, oh, sisi watu wa mulima, oh, sisi watu wa coast, oh, sisi watu wa Kalenjin. They will tell you, shut up. They will tell you, on Thursday, I have an appointment where I need to pay 7,500 for dialysis. Let's have a conversation about that dialysis. So I'm happy with where our politics are, and I'm happy with the fact that 2027 will be very different from any other election we've ever had as a country.
Do you believe we will sustain the issues, the discussion on issues, especially when we get to 2027?
Yes.
Because sometimes I look like Kenyans, on a normal day, we are very focused. Then when we get to the real moment, we forget.
No, I'll tell you this. You see, nobody forgets that their child is at home for lack of school fees. Now, unless you tell me this administration will make sure that they pay all capitation to schools for the year 2027. Not unless you tell me that this administration will make sure that when you go to hospital, that card, whether it's Taifa Care or SHIF or SHA or NHIF, is going to work. If you tell me, because if this person has just come from a hospital where they've paid 7,500 for dialysis twice a week, that's 15,000. How will you convince that person to vote for this administration? If this person has gone and borrowed money against their car logbook or against their milk that they give to the dairy so that they can pay school fees for their child, and they are paying that loan even during the time of the election, how do you convince that person to vote for this administration? If this person is in a situation whereby they wake up in the morning and the only thing they worry about is how to fix a meal like a dog for one day, how do you convince that person to vote for this administration? So if you are telling me that this administration will have changed, because what makes people forget is comfort. Comfort will make you forget that you have problems. But if you are waking up in the morning and you can't afford the next thing you're supposed to pay, your house is constantly or on an extra padlock because the landlord is on your case, your child who finished school ako hapa mnadanganywa sijui some university that we were getting some funny degrees zilikuwa zimepelekwa pale Nyayo Stadium. If that is what you're going through, you can constantly see your 22-year-old child with a degree at home, and you are frustrated and that child is frustrated, and they are the threat of beginning to start taking drugs. How do you forget and then vote for the same administration? It's not possible. So Kenyans will not forget.
Really?
And then as we move forward, this administration, I told you, they have an incredible depth for birth. people will not forget. In 2027, it will be a very different election.
It will be different. That, I believe. Also, the fact that we have a very young population that will be probably voting if they're able to have IDs and voters card, maybe. But something else that came up within the year, I feel like the president became very emotional this year.
Yes.
At some point, he's called people fools. At other point, he was somewhere in Coast. I don't know what he was launching. Then he told, because there was a story about governors saying they were forced to sign things in regards to buying hospital machines. And then he asked them, how do you sign something which you have not read unless kichwa yako ni? That came from a president. Then I think the following week, he told people, if you're resisting the vaccination of animals and all that, you must be a fool. I think you're stupid. Like the same year, he called people treasoners and criminals. Like, what has pushed the president to become so emotional and not have a proper presidential language?
I think first I'll respond by saying two things. The first one is very formal, that you don't insult your boss and you don't say horrible things to your boss. I think the president may have forgotten who the boss is. Kenyans are the bosses. And I have not had a human being who goes and tells the boss, wewe uko na pepo, wewe you're not thinking, you don't have common sense. Don't talk to your boss in condescending language. Mwananchi is the boss. Find a language that you would use to speak to your boss at any point in time. I think let us never forget, even as Wananchi, that the president is not the boss. The president is the servant. Mwananchi is the boss. But I think the second, and I submit very unconventional reply to the same, is we were told we have people. And
of resisting.
Yes, we have people.
In this country.
We have people. And there were about 7 million people who did not vote for President William Ruto, some 8 million who did not vote, and many others who have converted, who voted for him, but they regret. And they keep saying it every day. So we have in excess of 10, 12, up to 15 million people who have that pepper of resisting everything. And then I dare submit to us, then I think what we need to do is, as Fanya Mambo, I want to open a school, Fanya Mambo School of Pepology and Demology, so that you come and learn, you can get a certificate in pepology or a certificate in demonology or a certificate in both pepology, demonology, and exorcising those demons. And we can even get a charter so that we make it a university where we just teach people. Because the opportunity is there. When you have in excess of 10 million people who have people and they have demon of resisting and they need to be exorcised. I can even partner with Pastor Nganga. Where are you, Pastor Nganga? I need your help. We just open a good institution, Commander, and we just call it the Fanya Mambo Institution of Pepology and Demology. And all we need to do is to start training people on how to exorcise those demons that are making Kenyans to resist everything. It's a business opportunity. And I urge every other Kenyan, you can join our school. We teach you pepology and demonology because the market is there. There's in excess. Stop looking for new jobs. There's in excess of 10 million people who have people and demons who are causing problems. So we will start that. In fact, the course outline, I've just been
What
trained.
is your end goal?
Just to train people. You see, this is an opportunity.
What are you training people on?
The minute you hear there is a lot of people in the country, and these peoples are the ones that are making the country not to move forward. What we then need is people to help us remove these people. So first, we have to train them how to remove the people. So we come up and give certificates in pepology and demonology so that people are able to go and exorcise those demons. The opportunity is great. More than 10 million potential customers. That has to be taken very seriously.
It's very serious.
Yes.
But on a very serious note, why is the president losing his cool so often?
If you go to a boxing ring and two people are boxing and one gets angry, they lose the game. Because when you get angry in a boxing ring, what happens is you forget the rules. And you start throwing punches in a haywire manner. You even throw kicks and you even bite people. There's a boxer who beast someone else's ears. And the next thing you know is you're disqualified. Your Excellency the President, let me tell you, please, be this boxer who, in as much as it's a boxing, you still have to keep your cool, because if you don't keep your cool and you get angry, you will box outside of the rules of boxing and you'll be disqualified. don't lose your cool, and if you lose your cool, keep quiet. Avoid public. You don't have to address us when you're angry. In fact, you can come and say, fellow Kenyans, today, just let us stay in peace. Go home, cool off, And I think he needs to adopt something. At least Kibaki used to play golf. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta used to go to Kenyatta market and have nyama choma with people. This president needs to look for something sociable he does. Something, hata kama ni kukimbia marathon once in a while or run in
He's always on top
State
of cars.
But you can't just allow yourself to get into a burnout where you take it out on Kenyans. It's uncalled for, it's wrong, and he needs to apologize to Kenyans. I've heard words like stupid, I've heard words like all sorts of words that a head of state should not use against Wananchi. I like Kibaki. Kibaki would wait for a long time, and then he would say, Brade Bure,
Mavia
Kuku. And then because of his age and his senility, people would laugh and they would tell he's saying it from a heart of either dismissiveness or trivializing. He's just trivializing. But this one comes with raw rage and raw anger. It's unfortunate, and Kenyans are not taking it nicely.
Yeah, I think, Mr. President, I think that idea of finding something that eases the pressure is good, because it's not nice to abuse your citizens, because the word is abuse, actually. And something else that happened this year was the church. Initially, the church was quiet. And then towards the end of the year, the Catholic Church, the ACK, then NCCK woke up and said, no. This government has become a government of lies and not fixing the issues. Then a few, I think, weeks later, we see the Pentecostal and evangelicals meet at State House. And now people are like, so I think the lead bishop there was Bishop Mark, then there was Bishop J.B. Masinde and other bishops, Arthur Kitonga, who went to State House, and now people are not happy again. So where is the church? And will people make decisions about the church based on what the pastor said? You see the way we are saying about issues, that's how people are looking at governance from an issues perspective. Will religion change and become a thing of making sober judgments without necessarily following, because Fanya Mambo is the bishop and he said then I.
First and foremost, Bishop Mark Kariuki, you failed Kenyans. Kenyans are on social media. Kenyans are looking for your number. What Gen Zs are saying, they want to greet you with 1 shilling a piece. I have heard them say that. You have failed Kenyans. It is wrong. What you people have done is wrong. It's wrong from every front. And people are beginning to say not very good things about Deliverance churches, including boycotting your churches. Why would you want to go to State House? Why would you want to go there, and what conversations are you having there? I mean, the bulk of the churches, the bulk of the Kenyans are on a different side, and they are telling you, this is what we want. We have no confidence in this administration. Then you go to State House and you don't even disclose to us what you spoke about there. And Kenyans believe that you received brown envelopes. How do you exonerate yourself from such beliefs and from such connotations that people have put against you? Bishop Mark Kariuki, I will tell you, facing this camera and without fear or favor, you have failed Kenyans. And Kenyans are thoroughly disappointed in you. Who was there? Was Masinde there?
There was J.B. Masinde, Arthur Kitonga, the rest I don't know.
The whole of these Deliverance churches and the whole of these evangelicals, you have failed this nation. You have failed this nation because you are not speaking what Kenyans have told you to speak. If there was something you needed to tell the president, you should have told him in a place that Kenyans can hear you. Do a press conference. And just because even now we don't know what they discussed, which makes it horrible, because you see the Catholic bishops made a press statement and said what? If these people are trying to praise the president, why don't they just go before cameras and praise him? Or if they are trying to tell him he's made a mistake, they go before cameras and tell him he's made a mistake. So, but going to State House on their own and having lunch there, pilau, is a total shame.
But I actually understand where you're coming from, and I actually understand what Kenyans are saying, that they're disappointed. But I still have a question. If the president calls you today, and you are, let's say the church, even the Catholic bishops today, if they're called to State House, shall we then assume that they were going for the brown envelope? Like, are we assuming Mark went for the envelope?
Why have they been called to State House?
Maybe the president needed to hear what from the church, a voice of the evangelicals.
No. You see, there are many ways of communicating. The president would have called them to a town hall meeting.
But
Even
he
at
chose.
KICC.
But he chose.
No. State House is not a public place for now because it's not accessible to members of the public. And why the evangelicals themselves, why not come with some of their parishioners and some of their followers? Tell them, get a few of your leadership, church leadership, let's meet up in a public place. Let's meet up at Bomas of Kenya. That is, it's not, and then let's have some media recording. Come tell me what your issues are. But when you go and hide in State House, and then you just come to parade yourself, it spoils everything.
My concern is, I know people are unhappy for different reasons, but moving forward, you want to tell me if the president invites someone to State House, we are going to be assuming it was a brown envelope thing. Like the president now does not hold they cannot have a conversation that's private with them.
I'll tell you this. Politics is about perception. And whatever people perceive is more important than what you think. Ask yourself, what perception do my actions create? There was lunch at State House yesterday. A few friends of mine called me and I had offers for cards. I would have gone to State House yesterday. But you can imagine Fanya Mambo at State House, just going for lunch on Jamhuri Day. And the perception and what people will say and what will be your words on the streets. And that is why I chose not to go to State House. You have to ask yourself, what are the implications of my being in a specific place? There goes a short story of a lady who used to speak very ill of, these people who go to church and they think they are more saved and closer to God than everybody else. They call them Deputy Jesus. And she kept saying, oh, your husband is with so-and-so and so-and-so. And so everybody believed that she was holier than everybody else. In fact, I saw your husband's car parked at a bar. She would tell everybody that. And one day, one of the guys from the workplace drove his car and parked outside the lady's house for the whole night and left. And the following morning, everybody was, oh, we keep telling people how holy you are. And last night, so-and-so had parked his car outside your parking for the whole night. We saw it there. It's about perception. And it's about what people believe from what they see. The standards is that of Julius Caesar's wife. The fact that people suspect that Julius Caesar's wife is having an affair is good enough reason for Julius Caesar to leave his wife. And that's what he did. He set the standard very high for his wife. This is where we are. The church, the standard is very high. You cannot allow people to have a perception of you as corrupt and recipients of brown envelopes.
And in line with that, if the Catholic bishops today were invited to State House and they went, we've been
They've
happy.
been invited. They've refused to go.
No. People change. At some point, maybe they'll get an invite and go. So shall we now start saying now the Catholic Church has also...
I don't think...
Because I still don't understand how people now assume if you meet the president, it's purely a brown envelope thing.
No, that's not the point. The point is how you meet the head of state.
You will meet him at State House, probably.
No. You see, the government is not run by one person. That's what we don't want. If the Catholic Church has to meet, let them meet government officials, meet the head of state, meet members of the cabinet, meet a few members of parliament, and a few members from the judiciary.
And you then denying him the right to, because it's it's like you have the right to meet anyone you want.
No. Let me tell you, that government of one man show is what Kenyans don't want. Open it up so that it will be said the Catholic Church met the Chief Justice, the President, Parliament, like you can have the Speaker of the National Assembly, Speaker of the Senate, and maybe just a representation of government. That way, it doesn't look like there were brown envelopes flying all over the place. And then it's issue-based, because if they have an issue, for example, to do with capitation to the schools, Catholic Church runs more than 31% of the schools in this country. If you have an issue with capitation to schools, let the Minister for Education be present in that meeting. If they have an issue with shisha because of the number of hospitals they run, let the Minister in charge of health, the CS in charge of health, be present in that meeting. But meeting the president alone creates a very bad image. So what I would urge any church that is going to meet is to say, what are the issues that affect us as a church ministry? And many churches are in touch with schools, they're in touch with hospitals, they are in touch with infrastructure and a few other things. And what we want is a representation from government, because like even some churches have issues to do with the judicial matters. Let there be representatives of the judiciary, let there be representatives of the various ministries. No, when you word it on TV that the church had a consultative meeting with multi sectors of the government, then it becomes something different. But meeting one person, it is not healthy.
Oh, okay. Interesting perspective. Moving forward. And during Jamhuri, the president gave a speech and said that starting January, kids should be registered with now it's not
Taifa Care.
Yes, Taifa Care.
Yeah. Okay, first I
Wait,
think...
did we transition from NHIF to shift to...
There was no need for public
Care,
participation.
Or what happened?
There was no need for public participation. It's a useless thing. Anyway, there are about 10.4 million children who are in primary schools today. There are about 3.9 million children who are in secondary school today. That is about 14.1 million people who are in school today. And 30% of this, which is about 4.23 million, are in boarding schools. Every time we have a school opening day in this country, we are having 14.1 million people either moving to the nearest school by day, and that's why like Ngong Road, because of the number of schools, Riara, Makini, and so on and so forth, is usually very hectic when schools open. And it becomes crazy. You just now have to adjust your timings and dates and everything. Usually, opening day for this country, many things come to a standstill. You go to Machakos bus station, it's crisis. People are stranded for hours on end. And this government, in its wisdom, decided that all schools open on one day, which is a horrible decision. So with the normal 14.1 million people, we usually have a transport crisis in Kenya. If they now say that this 14.1 million, because his direction was very clear, they'll need to be accompanied by their parent or parents, for that matter, to this place. What will happen if there was a 14-seater matatu that would have carried 14 boys to Nanyuki High or Muranga High or wherever? Now that bus or that van will probably carry 7 children and 7 parents. So we shall need double the number of vehicles that we have always needed on that opening day only. Because now we shall have 14.1 million children, and if each is only accompanied by one parent, you multiply that by 2, we shall have about 28 million people moving around the country on one day. Does our transport system have the capacity to handle 28 million of us moving around? It's a serious question. And because those that are doing local trips will do local trips the normal way. But even for these 4.23 million people who are in boarding schools, you multiply that by 2. Now you have a crisis because you need to move about 9 million people. And their parents who love each other so much, so there'll be the 2 of them. So it's even more. Maybe government should consider if this direction must be implemented, if this directive must be enforced, then they must consider saying all national schools will open on this date. All extra-county schools will open on this date. Then and try to ensure that you don't have all those schools opening on the same day. It will be a transport crisis. It will be a crisis, and there'll be a stretch on everything. And there'll be a lot of stress. Even traffic-wise, police will have a very hard time doing that kind of madness. So as they think about this direction, they can fine-tune it. But then again, the question becomes, anybody who's owned a motor vehicle in this country or a piki knows that you can go online and you can do everything towards the registration of your piki without going to NTSA, and you own your motorbike. Why is it necessary to have clearance? Like now, if you look at national schools, a school like Lenana School has got children coming from Kitale, from Kwale, from all sorts of parts of the country. You can imagine someone leaving Kwale. They usually leave the night before with their child to come. There will even be an accommodation crisis in various towns. Because I have seen national schools within Mount Kenya. Take an example of Nanyuki High, for example, where a child comes from Kwale to Nanyuki High. It is not logically possible for that parent and that child to achieve that in one day. They have to leave Kwale, take the night train, come, get to Nairobi, go to Nanyuki High, register throughout the day, because there will also be a crisis there.
Yeah,
that school has got more than 2,000 children. So take the whole day registering, either find a place to spend the night, or again travel at night in a train that is congested and already overbooked.
You've gone even to the transport and the crisis that would come with that. My concern is, I thought when we moved from NHIF, we got text messages that when we didn't go to register, that we were moved to
SHA automatically.
So why is it not possible then to do the same to this? Because we were put in SHA. How is it not possible then to put the same people, because it's the same details, to Taifa?
Because a directive has been issued that again may not have been very well thought of. That directive is the implementation of that directive is a national nightmare. Is a national nightmare. When parents have to move with their children that way, I think what they need to do, they told us that they are spending billions on a system. Why spend billions on a system that cannot register people from the comforts of their houses? The systems that did not cost a lot of money, like NTSA, we don't even know how much it costs, but it's working well for motor vehicle logbook transfers and piki. Anybody who's owned a motorbike will tell you. Those systems are working. Even eCitizen is working for for quite a good range of government services. I mean, you can incorporate a company limited without leaving the comfort of your house. You literally can do it from the nearest cyber. Why do we have to move parents across this country with their children at a time when they are also trying to look for money to pay for school fees? Why do we have to do it? That system then has to be abolished, and Kenyans need a refund of their billions, because you cannot set up such an expensive system and then Kenyans have to go to schools to register, and there is the existence of an expensive system.
Let's just say we wish the parents, every parent, we wish you the very best with that season, because of course it's going to be a very chaotic period, maybe 1 week for that matter, or season moving forward. Anyway, I think generally that's how the year has been. Is there anything that has happened that I have left out that was key for you?
Yes,
in
I think
political space.
In the political space, the thing was that when the president started becoming very angry with Kenyans, his own cabinet secretaries picked it up. And we had the likes of Cabinet Secretary Joho speaking down upon Kenyans in a very condescending tone. And we just need to remind some of those ones that they are not elected. And they therefore cannot speak to Kenyans like that. And they have to withdraw and apologize. The last thing that I want to address is the government and their people have tried so hard to tribalize this country. I remember CS Kipchumba Murkomen saying that this country is criticizing William Ruto because he's Kalenjin. And these people are working so hard to make 2027 election about the tribe. When the Catholic Church spoke, they singled out Bishop Muheria, who said nothing. And they were trying to make it look like it's a Kikuyu who is trying to fight President William Ruto because he's Kalenjin, so as to try and bring back that narrative of 41 tribes against one. I have news for them. The people of Kenya have refused. They have said that the issues raised by the bishops concern us all. There is no hospital for Kikuyus and Kalenjins and Masais and Luyas and Luos. There is none. There is no she and sha that affects certain tribes and does not affect others. There is no finance bill that was going to say, oh, you're Masai. Masais buy Pampers at this price and the others, and they buy pads at a lower price. There is none of that. Kenyans have refused to be drawn back into that tribal cocoon. And we will fight with everything we have to keep reminding them, to keep reminding Kipchumba Murkomen that he went to Eldoret and he found Kalenjin-speaking people telling him to his face that they do not want this administration. And that's a good place to be. And we are extremely happy that Kenyans are telling them to their face, and in places where they think they have a stronghold, that, hey, we don't support this. We are not a tribal nation. If that heckling had happened in Murang'a, oh, it would have been bad. Or even in another place, people would have said that they are being tribal. I am happy he was heckled at home. He was heckled in a place that he considered to be a stronghold of President William Ruto, so that he learns that this has got nothing to do with tribe. It's got everything to do with bad governance. Finally, one thing that has happened in that year, the government has shown us that they are not reflective. They don't think of themselves as the problem. At no point has this administration said, we have looked at these things, and for once we find a place where we think we've erred. Everything they've told us is they first blamed Ford Foundation, they blamed Uhuru Kenyatta, they blamed empty coffers, they blamed everything, and finally they ended up by blaming Pepo. I think after blaming Pepo, I don't know what else they are going to open. They are going to blame. I beseech all of us to say no and to do our best to remind them that Kenya is one nation. It's indivisible on the basis of tribes. And Kenyans will not vote as regions. They will not vote as tribes. Kenyans will vote on issues. They will vote on personalities. They will vote for meritocracy. And that's why some people offered themselves and just suggested that they could vie for president. And now there's a lot of heat around that, because Kenyans are saying you can be an Ogiek, we will vote for you. You can be from the Taita Tavetas, who are not very many in this country. But just prove to us you're good. Just show us something good about you. We will forget that you are Taita and that your population is not very high, and we shall all rally behind you and vote for you. Yeah.
That's very, very interesting, and I love that we've moved from people who just watch things happen to being very active citizens. You know, it's Christmas season. You can wish our
yes.
Merry Christmas.
This is Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, your friend and a fighter for good governance in this country. And this is a very happy season for all of us. I want us to just wish ourselves a Merry Christmas. So mine is to look into this camera and wish you a very, very, very Merry Christmas. And just to remind you that this is the time for family. Do your best, struggle as much as you can to just try to reach out to one family member. And if you're not able to reach out to your family at home, get someone who is close to you. Again, we said we are not tribal. As long as they are your neighbor and they love you and you love them back, make them your family. Spend time with them. Be nice to people. This is the time to be as close to as possible to the people you have, and show your mom some love if she's there, or your dad some love if he's still there. For those who've gone to be with the Lord, it's time to remember them. So a very Merry Christmas. It's time for family. It's time to remember one another, and it's time to be Kenyan. And also, most finally, during this festive season, it's a period to buy that one extra unga from what you buy, that extra cooking oil, and to identify a needy person in society. And just walk up to them, knock on their door, and tell them, I brought you a Merry Christmas. So, and that is what is at the heart of everything. Just go, surprise someone, get an old person, a young person, a struggling family. This is the time to buy something that you can afford. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be one unga and one, small cooking oil. But this is Christmas. Just knock on someone's door and tell them, I wish you a very Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Fantastic. And to you, our viewer, thank you so much for supporting us throughout this year. We've experienced so much love, and we always see it in the comments section. We totally appreciate you. And we promise you we will be here even in 2025 also. So please, if you've not subscribed, at least do that. It's the season of love and caring. So just give us that subscription as we end the year. And we will see you in 2025. From me, have a Merry, Merry Christmas and happy holidays. And yeah, it's the season to share. So show some love to people, and let's be kind as Kenyans. We can do this, yeah? See you in 2025.